The used market is flooded with Canon EF lenses. I went looking and I found more than 50. It's overwhelming. That's why I've narrowed them down to the 10 that provide the best value. It doesn't matter what you want. Prime, zoom, wide, or telephoto, all types of photography are covered. These lenses will work with an SLR, DSLR, or adapted to mirrorless. What more could you want? We'll start with my favorite EF lens, the Canon 50mm f1.8 STM. It's the nifty 50 to get because it has a better focusing motor and a metal lens mount. I like the field of view because it makes framing easy. The aperture is fast, which is helpful when shooting in low light, like indoors. It's great for travel, street, portraits, and just daily life. If you're interested in photography, I want to say that there's no better choice, but we all know that 24-70s exist. Don't get it confused with the plastic fantastic, the Canon 50mm f1.8 II. It's called that because the mount and the rest of the lens is plastic. That'd be fine on an entry-level SLR, but on a full-frame DSLR, it's a disaster waiting to happen. The first version also has a metal mount, but I don't think I would buy one to save $15 versus the STM version. The 40mm f2.8 is a fun alternative because it's a pancake lens. It'll barely stick out from the lens mount. That's perfect for street travel or daily use. Imagine how much less noticeable you would be with the lens than, say, something like a 70-200 2.8, or more realistically, a 800 f5.6. You're going to be invisible. However, Micro Four Thirds has more pancake lenses to choose from, and there are smaller cameras. I'm not using a full-frame DSLR or shooting film on an SLR because I want small and light. I would rather have a faster aperture, but don't let my preferences sway you. It's still a good lens. A third alternative to the 50 is the 28mm f2.8 IS USM. I think that's the second most popular prime focal length because of how well it handles daily use. I'm not sure what the third most popular focal length is. There's also a Canon 28 f2.8. If your budget allows it, the 25 years of manufacturing and optical development is worth paying for. The IS stands for Image Stabilization, and USM stands for ultrasonic motor, which provide fast and accurate focusing. There is a faster f1.8, though at that price I'm going to be thinking about the 16-35 zoom that is coming up. If you want a wider prime, there is a 20 and 24 f2.8 that can both be found for under $200. The Canon 24-105 f4L is the ideal choice if you want one lens to do it all. The zoom range covers everything outside of niche needs, and the aperture keeps the size and weight reasonable. It's going to be more comfortable to carry around than a 24-70 2.8, and you get better reach. The second version can be found for less than $600. It was the kit lens for the 5D series. They're very common, so hunting for a deal will pay off. If that's still too much, the 24-105 f3.5-5.6 IS STM is slightly less expensive. It's not an L lens, so the build quality takes a hit. I would not pay $300 for one. Unfortunately, it's the cheapest full-frame zoom that Canon sold during the DSLR era. The less expensive EF-S zooms are only compatible with APS-C DSLRs. So there's definitely a gap here compared to other systems where you would be able to find at least a couple cheaper zooms. I don't want to fill that gap with cheap film era 28 to whatever zooms. There's a reason why they sell for less than $50. If you do need a cheap lens, my one piece of advice would be to avoid any of them with plastic lens mounts. Those were designed solely to hit a cheap price point. Do not get the Canon 70-300 f4.5.6 IS USM confused with the Canon 75-300 f4.5.6 III. The 75-300 is widely considered to be Canon's worst lens, and I absolutely agree with that. The 70-300 is perfect for getting into sports, wildlife, or action photography on a budget. You could get it and one of the earlier primes for less than a 24-105. The second version goes for around $400. The big advantage of this lens is that it's small enough to be handheld. It doesn't require a special bag, monopod, or even worse, a tripod. You'll actually use it because of how easy it is to carry and have with you. Then, after you get some use out of it, you can decide if more reach is worth the additional weight. There are 3 versions of the 16-35 f2.8L. Because of that, I am assuming that it was the most popular wide zoom, but it uses 82mm filters. There's an f4L version that is starting to show up for less than $500, and it only needs 77mm filters. Polarizers that are that large are expensive enough to be budget busters, though at least they can be used, unlike lenses with bulbous front elements. The 16-35s were bread and butter professional lenses. Image quality on the second version is very good, but it was improved with the third. I think I'd rather have the second version than 2 out of the 3 20, 24, or 28mm f2.8 primes. The Canon 85 f1.8 USM is a good entry-level portrait lens. It's fast enough to blur backgrounds. The sharpness is fine because people don't want razor-sharp images of their pores. All of the faster 85s are going to be more than $500. If you're on a tight budget, you can look for the Yongnuo knockoff. Good deals can be found on the Canon 100 f2 USM. There are also various third parties selling manual focus lenses. Without a split prism to aid in focusing, you're going to be left with live view if the camera you have has it. I don't think that would be a very good experience, which is why I recommend avoiding the manual focus lenses. A big surprise is the Canon 135mm f2L USM. It's a legendary portrait lens that can melt backgrounds. I think I would have a hard time stopping the lens down. I mean, who cares about composition when you got bokeh? Autofocus speed is going to be surprisingly good thanks to the USM motor. Both of the 1.4x and 2x extenders are compatible. Those can make it usable for indoor sports. The only downside is that the lens weighs 750 grams. I definitely wouldn't want to carry it around all day unless I was getting paid. I also feel that way about the 760-gram Canon 70-200 f4L IS USM. That's the second of 3 versions. Being one stop slower than 2.8 shouldn't be an issue for the later DSLRs with good high ISO performance. There's 4 f2.8 versions. The oldest is the only one you can find under $500, but the choices don't end there because Tamron and Sigma made several more. The next step up in quality is going to happen around $800. While that is expensive, it's still way less than any of the newer RF lenses. As a bonus, my 2 macro picks would be the Tamron SP 90mm f2.8. Older versions will be less expensive. I like the focus clutch and the focus ring feels good. The Canon 100mm f2.8L IS USM macro is the field lens to get. It's weather sealed, has internal focusing and image stabilization, though you're going to have to go deal hunting. There are a few lenses that I didn't include for various reasons. The Canon 50mm f1.4 USM is mediocre with a poor build quality. That's why they're so cheap. If you want a fast aperture, there's the Zeiss Planar, Sigma Art, or a 45mm Tamron. The Canon 35mm f2 IS USM is expensive. There's a Zeiss Distagon and a f1.4 Sigma Art around the same price. And if you're cheap, there's a Yongnuo knockoff for less than $100. The Canon 24-70 f2.8L USM is a little old for a professional lens. The f4L version is just over $500. I would rather get something different or spend more. The 15mm f2.8 fisheye is cool if you have a planned use. If you're just going to play around, there's a good chance it ends up as a shelf decoration. The 14mm f2.8L is the widest EF prime. If you want a cheaper manual focus option with more distortion, there is a Rokinon. A more in-depth look at lenses for wildlife, portraits, and landscapes are in separate videos. More third-party options will be included. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't, and go enjoy another one of my videos.